Keir Starmer has just done the unthinkable live on national television. After weeks of mounting pressure, a roaring 3 million signature petition, and a crushing defeat in the 2025 by-elections, the Labour leader finally cracked. What was once whispered in back rooms has now exploded into full public view. Britain is heading into a snap general election. Welcome back to UK Watch Arena. This isn't spin or political theater. It's the collapse of a promise. Starmer, who once declared he'd serve a full term no matter the cost, has now bowed to the fury sweeping the nation. In one televised statement, he reversed course and stunned even his closest allies. The petition, once dismissed as noise, has reshaped British politics. Outside Parliament, crowds erupted. Reform UK celebrated. Labour descended into crisis. It started with a simple question: will you resign if you lose? At the time, Starmer smirked and said no. Now, overwhelmed by rebellion and public outrage, that smirk has vanished. When he finally said yes, few believed he meant it. After rising to power by reshaping Labour in his image, surrendering control seemed unthinkable. But after a brutal landslide defeat in the 2025 local elections, where Labour lost dozens of councils and Reform UK surged, Starmer stood at the podium pale and visibly shaken. His voice cracked as he announced, "The public deserves a fresh choice." To some, it sounded like humility. To most, it was desperation. For months, Starmer brushed off criticism. The viral petition signed by over 3 million people was called a stunt. But inside Labour, panic spread. Approval ratings collapsed. Working-class voters didn't just feel ignored, they felt betrayed. Just 6 months ago, insiders predicted a smooth road to Downing Street. Now the party is in freefall. The pledges that brought Starmer to power were abandoned. His image as a principled reformer crumbled. Inflation remained high. Public services collapsed. Tuition fees stayed. Housing costs soared. His 10 campaign pledges: defend the NHS, scrap tuition fees, nationalize key services, tax the wealthy, were quietly dropped. Nurses went on strike. Tuition fees remained. Public ownership was too costly. Taxing the wealthy became too ideological. Disillusioned Labour loyalists watched with frustration as Starmer morphed into a cautious centrist. Then came the petition. What began with a few angry citizens turned into a national reckoning. Parliament was forced to debate it. Members of Parliament were swamped with emails, calls, and protests. This was no longer about a politician. It was about accountability. If you're finding this political drama as shocking as we are, make sure to subscribe because British politics just keeps getting more unpredictable by the day. Meanwhile, Reform UK surged in former Labour strongholds. The very voters Starmer had vowed to represent abandoned him. Local elections confirmed the shift. Reform swept through towns that had stood by Labour for decades. These voters weren't protesting. They were walking away with purpose. For them, Labour had become unrecognizable, deaf to their concerns. When Starmer appeared on TV and called a snap election, it wasn't seen as leadership. It was seen as surrender. Crowds gathered. Social media erupted. Reform UK called it a democratic victory. Former Labour strongholds responded with disbelief. This wasn't the strategy of a confident leader. It was the collapse of one. His downfall didn't come overnight. It was slow, avoidable, and entirely self-inflicted. His pledges were abandoned. Criticism ignored. Voters betrayed. Starmer, who once promised principled politics, became the face of scripted centrism. His emotionless interviews and refusal to engage left voters cold. As Britain heads into a historic election, one question lingers. Can a man so detached now rally a nation desperate for direction? His robotic tone stood in stark contrast to the fiery, relatable style of Nigel Farage. Reform canvassed streets and spoke plainly. Starmer buried himself in policy briefs and vague talking points. The result? Labour fractured. MPs leaked damaging documents. Volunteers quit. Donations vanished. The 3 million signature petition became a symbol of collapse. Still, Starmer said nothing. He hid, hoping the storm would pass. It didn't. Then, in a moment broadcast live, he reappeared. Eyes tired, voice strained, he announced, "We will go to the people." But few saw it as leadership. It was surrender, the climax of months of inaction and denial. Now Britain heads toward its most unpredictable election in decades. Labour is fractured. Reform is emboldened. The public is disillusioned. Hit subscribe to stay updated on this developing story because British politics has never been more dramatic.